The squatting problem in the U.S. making national headlines recently. Several states, including Florida and New York, are taking legal action to crack down on squatters. Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman is also now speaking out about this issue, telling the New York Post that squatters have no rights. Fetterman says he has always tried to push back against the squatting issue, and he points out he often dealt with the problem when he was the mayor of working-class Braddock, Pennsylvania. Fetterman says squatters are breaking the law, and he called the issue crazy, comparing it to someone stealing a car and then gaining the rights to the vehicle. Misty Marris is a trial attorney and legal analyst, joining us now to talk about some of the legislation that's being pushed around this. Misty, thanks for being with us. How does squatter rights compare legally state to state, and where are we seeing some of the strongest laws right now?
Yeah, so Marni, in every state, it's going to be different, and the rules are going to be largely dependent on the jurisdiction. And that can be not only state, that can be different localities within the state. It could be cities, it could be counties. And so it's really a legal patchwork of a whole different host of laws. Now, in many, many jurisdictions, there are requirements that if a squatter is occupying a property, it has to be open, conspicuous, that they have to actually be paying property taxes in order to gain rights. And in some jurisdictions, that could be like 10 years down the road. In other jurisdictions, for instance, New York, where I'm a New York attorney, there could be potential for tenants' rights or rights of a person in a property in 30 days. And what happens in those situations is that then the rightful owner is thrown into the process of eviction, a landlord-tenant court, a civil court where the process can take up to 2-3 years. And so there's no immediate relief. And that's why we're seeing so many of these issues crop up around the country.
So for homeowners or landlords in a lot of cases, when they show up and somebody's squatting, what is the first best move legally?
So again, that really depends on what your jurisdiction is. What we're seeing from this new legislation in Florida is that there is a mechanism in place for immediate relief, meaning a sheriff can be called. The sheriff, provided that the individual falls under certain parameters, meaning that there's no legal dispute, that the person hasn't been given authority to be on the property, that getting that person out can happen right in that moment. And then there's also legal repercussions to squatting specifically. So there's laws relating to that could be a felony. Now, in other jurisdictions, the best way is to start that legal record immediately. Ensure that there is a public record of filing, get into landlord-tenant court right away, call the police, and make sure that all of those legal mechanisms are put into place right away, because it is a very long process and creates you need a record in order to ultimately be successful.
Have there been examples of squatters being held accountable that are being used as part of this conversation, where we've seen the penalty be heightened against people who are getting away with this?
Yeah, so Marni, absolutely. There are circumstances where the laws that are on the books, like trespassing and other laws of that nature that relate to property rights, have yielded repercussions for individuals who are squatting and taking advantage of these legal loopholes. Now, that being said, it's like years down the road before you see that type of relief and a significant amount of money for the rightful owners to get there. And that's why we're seeing this backlash of having a more immediate process where there's repercussions relating specifically to squatters, as opposed to just relying on the laws that are on the books and fitting these circumstances into that framework.
Does it give some states who have less stringent laws some momentum when we see states like Florida and New York pass laws? I mean, is it sort of a domino effect in a situation like this?
You definitely do. You see a blueprint for what's to come next. And look, every state is going to have an idea of how far they want to go. Florida is taking some of the more conservative measures in favor of homeowners and landowners. New York is kind of looking at legislation that would be somewhere in between and maybe extending those time frames. And all across the country, especially in places like Georgia and California, where these issues have been really, really prominent, they're looking and looking at these proposals as blueprints to see if it works for their jurisdiction. But certainly, Marni, once you see this happening in certain states, it usually is a domino effect around the country for other reforms.
Yeah, it's so maddening because it does feel oftentimes, at least when we cover it in the news, that the squatters have more rights than the homeowners, but we are seeing that shift. Misty, always good to see you. Happy Eclipse Day.
Thank you. Got my glasses ready to go.
Yep, you're going to get a good view of it in New York. All right, take care.